Greetings and salutations, it is I, your humble host, Captain Lunar, bringing you another Patreon request from Patreon supporter, Thomas Hibbert. Today is a very special Patreon request. He's asked me to cover the what-if scenario of what if Jason Todd was adopted by the Court of Owls. So yeah, this should be very interesting. So, without further ado, let's begin. We open our story on a familiar scene. A kid, Jason Todd, is eyeing Batman's Batmobile, specifically the tires. Now, what happens here is where things go off the rails. He does take the tires off, however, there is a bit of a snag. When he sees a pointy-eared silhouette, he automatically assumes it's Batman. This is not the case. It is actually a Talon, who had been sent to essentially gauge Batman's combat prowess. However, there is a bit of a lining here, a silver lining, mostly because, while he did not find Batman, he did find Jason Todd. And considering the fact that Jason was able to take the wheels off the Batmobile in fairly record time, in fact, and was willing to try, got the Talon's attention. As such, the Talon essentially abducts Jason. Jason doesn't really see anything. In fact, as far as Jason is concerned, he's just knocked out and taken. However, when he wakes up, he finds that there's a bit of a oddity. Namely, he's in a really nice, fancy bedroom. In fact, he is essentially given the lap of luxury right out the gate when he wakes up. And it's here that he finds someone in an owl mask looking down at him, who essentially just says, "Well, hello, Jason. I know you've had a rough time on the streets. Would you like to continue to do so, or would you like some of the finer things?" And essentially, the Court of Owls makes Jason a deal. He goes through their training. He becomes one of them to lead their talons. And in exchange, he never has to go hungry again. Now, the thing with this is Jason is still a kid, so that sounds like a good deal to him, especially when they explain what they'll be doing. To protect Gotham. And Jason's like, "Oh, you mean like Batman?" And the Court of Owls is like, "Essentially, while Batman's good, what we can offer is better. In fact, we can make you better than Batman. You can be our Batman, if you will. Shall we say, an owl to his bat." And Jason's like, "Well, what's so good about an owl?" And then the Court of Owls leader says, "Well, don't you know, owls eat bats." And so Jason's training begins, essentially honing him into what would become the ultimate Talon. While he isn't undead like the other Talons, he is quite literally their equal without ever having to be reanimated. On top of that, he still has a fondness for the color red, which point, something that the Court of Owls does end up noticing. At which point he is dubbed, when he is old enough, at 15, he is dubbed the Red Owl. The right hand of the court. And it's through Jason that they really start to command their own forces. They really start to force their influence a lot harder. Because Jason, he does international assassination jobs for them. He does he does local stuff. A crime boss starts poking around too much outside of their little comfort zone. Yeah, Jason takes them down. And of course, he's so stealthy, and since nobody knows the court actually exists, no one knows no one knows, so everyone just assumes that it's just a rival family business. And it's through Jason, though, that they really start to essentially make bigger and bolder plays, because they have something that they've had their eye on for a long time. And what would that be? Well, Bruce Wayne. After all, Bruce Wayne was their initial choice. When that fell through, Dick Grayson was. And when they couldn't get their hands on Dick, well, let's just say they decided that Jason would fulfill their next part of that plan. And what is that master plan of theirs? Well, they have discovered a way to combine the Dionysium, what they use to bring back the Talons, with a small sample of the Lazarus pit. Now, with that in mind, they would be able to essentially create a being that could withstand any form of trauma, be it death, be it essentially no matter what was done to them, they would eventually regenerate. While not true immortality, after all there are limits to everything, it would make anyone who ingests that formula essentially immortal. And so it is through that the Court of Owls decides, you know what? We are going to send you into the most dangerous area we can think of. And Jason, who by this point is 19, is like, all right, whatever you want. If it's for the good of Gotham, I'm yours as always. So they send Jason into the League of Assassins. And it's through the League of Assassins he uses the skills he's acquired in the court with the court's training to rise through their ranks. And it's through this point, though, that Jason actually does catch the wind of Batman, because he's essentially stepped into something that Batman is quite familiar with. That is, of course, the League of Assassins, as we all know. And yeah, everything is going fine as Jason rises through the ranks of the assassins, even impressing Ra's al Ghul. However, at the first opportunity he gets, he manages to do something that completely blindsides everyone. He manages to kill Ra's al Ghul. And not only that, he steals his head. While he could possibly come back with it if it was reattached and he was put in the Lazarus pit, without the head, they can't bring him back. And Jason disposes of it permanently. But before doing so, he ends up managing to steal a sample of the Lazarus pit to bring back to the Court of Owls. And it's through the Court of Owls that they unveil their master plan. They're going to first of all reveal to Jason learns exactly who's been calling the shots for the past couple of years. And his name is Lincoln March. Or as he would love people to think of him as, the long-lost son of Thomas Wayne Jr. He's not actually Thomas Wayne's long-lost son, but it is known that the Waynes did have an older son that seemingly died in childbirth. As it turns out, there was enough of faulty records, though, that meant that it could be possible. It could have just been an oversight, and he was adopted, and he was taken home by someone else. that's not the case, but they're planning on using this leverage to essentially set Lincoln March up as the potential true head of Wayne Industries. And with Wayne Industries under their control, since Bruce doesn't want to play ball, they'll have the ability to really manufacture their new formula, the Dionysium L, as they call it. So, of course, Jason is essentially placed on bodyguard duty for Lincoln, as he's both setting up his fund to be play to be mayor, wherein he'll reveal that he is, quote, recently discovered, unquote, that he is actually that he's actually the birth son of the firstborn son of Thomas and Martha Wayne. And it's here, though, that Bruce breaks in to try and, as Batman, to essentially, uncover stuff. And it is here that Batman gets his first encounter with the Red Owl. And to say the fight goes sideways for Bruce would be an understatement. Mostly because while Bruce has no idea about the Red Owl, or even the Court of Owls at this point, the Red Owl, Jason, knows all about him. So, yeah, he essentially manages to just put the hurt on Bruce. And it's at this point that Jason really is like, wow, I can't believe I used to look up to you as a kid. I even tried to steal your tires once. I guess if a kid could pull that off, I guess you were never such hot shit to begin with. And that's when Bruce realizes something. He did see a kid around that time trying to take his tires off. Of course, he was dealing with other stuff. And when he came back, the tires were off, but the kid was gone. He always thought about that. He kept it tucked away in the back of his head. So after that first encounter, Bruce manages to do some digging. And as it turns out, since Jason was a kind of a street urchin, they didn't really think of trying to cover up too much tracks. But those tracks were still there. And it allowed Bruce to discover that, yes, the Red Owl does have a name. And since he managed to get just a slight bit of blood off him in the course of their fight, he did manage to run that little bit of blood through medical databases and discover that, yeah, while it was heavily encrypted and hard to find, the court's ultimate downfall was assuming that Jason, being just a street kid, would be above notice. Like no one would think to look for him. But as it turns out, Bruce did, and he learned that it is, in fact, Jason Todd. Now, since Bruce and Jason haven't had really a relationship in this universe of any kind, what does happen is he does look up and discover that as it turns out, in this universe, Jason's mother is actually still alive. As she is in most universes, she's just kind of absent from his life. But this is just it though. If the Court of Owls had that kind of research available to them and everything, they would have told, if they cared to, they could have told Jason. And the thing is, Jason always assumed his mother just OD'd somewhere and was just gone. But no, Bruce, Batman, figures that if he's this good of a combatant, then he's going to have to play this a little differently. So what he's going to have to do is, in fact, play psychologically. And Bruce goes at the Red Owl with the relation that he knows his real name, and he knows that the court has been keeping something from him. Because Bruce, after encountering the Red Owl, he figures that, yeah, he does even more digging, and of course, Court of Owls, he's aware. And it's at this point that he pretty much says, the court's been hiding something from you. Your mother is, in fact, still alive. And he's like, well, so she never came out before? Yeah, but here's the thing. She got clean. She got better. a couple of months after you left, she was coming back to get you. In fact, she's currently living over in Bloodhaven. And Jason's like, well, okay, so it's like, in other words, Bruce is trying to get through to him that the court is using him. And Jason is obviously a little, he's not really into, like, listening to him right now, because essentially Batman is trying to get him to turn his back on the people that got him out of the street, that trained him, that gave him purpose. But Bruce is like, you know what, no. Bruce is just, he knows that fighting Jason is going to be hard. He knows that he could beat him, but the problem is Bruce doesn't want to have it come to that, because he's looked up the records. He knows Jason up to that point, when the court found him, had a terrible life, and Bruce could have been in a position to help. And, obviously they stole that chance away from Jason, and stole that chance away from Bruce to actually get him the proper help, and to get him the chance to be something more than just a lackey, essentially, which Bruce does push. Eventually gets to the point where they've essentially fought to a standstill, and then finally, as it turns out, Jason lets slip that they were going to give him the chance to become like the immortal being from the Dionysium L. Like, why should I even listen to you? They're going to make me the head of the court. I'm going to be the voice of the Court of Owls. But unfortunately, that's not what's going to happen. Jason was always meant to be a soldier. For the court. He was always meant to be a general, but he was never meant to be the head of the court, which would go to Lincoln March, a.k.a. the supposed Thomas Wayne Jr. And Bruce reveals just as much, because the entire time he's been doing this, Nightwing has been going over everything. Like Nightwing and Oracle have been going over their own stuff. And as it turns out, the court never had any intention of making Jason their voice. While they did have plans to give him the Dionysium L, once it was synthesized, that with the takeover of Wayne Industries, they would never had any intention of making him the head, of course. Which would be the thing that really just drives Jason angry, like exceedingly angry. Because they trained me, I gave my life to them, and they're not going to. Essentially he realized that the court only cares about who they want to be in a position of power. And Lincoln March, while he's not the son of Thomas Wayne, is from superior stock, so to speak. So, as it stands, he's going to be the new voice once things go as planned. So Jason is just completely destroyed, essentially, because everything he has done for the court has been for the good of Gotham, has been for the good of the court. And with all this in mind, he can't believe that they would just betray him like that. So he agrees to help Batman, Nightwing, and Oracle take the court down to stop them. So he goes in, he manages to steal the compound for the Dionysium L, which is going to be synthesized as it's close to getting to the point where the court is going to produce the supposed DNA records that would prove that Lincoln March is actually Thomas Wayne. Unfortunately, that doesn't go. Unfortunately for them, that gets interrupted, and actual DNA testing was done, with it being, Oracle swapping it, and it turns out Lincoln March is the son of the marches. Like, wait, no, wait, what? In other words, completely blindsiding him, and like, yeah, that does a damper on the plan, as Batman, Nightwing, and the Red Owl storm the Court of Owls with Jason, essentially like giving them insight into, okay, here's what avoid that, avoid this is where the Talons are kept, everything, and it gets down to a fight between Lincoln March, who is in full owl Talon armor, between Jason and him, and Batman and Nightwing. And yeah, the armor is essentially increasing his power, his physical abilities, and he's also taken the unsynthesized Dionysium L compound, because if we're not gonna make more of it, then I'm still going to get it. And yeah, Lincoln March essentially just dominating all of them until Jason input something that was a bit of a failsafe for this section of the court, which is a self-destruct sequence. And yeah, to essentially just a meltdown, which would cause enough of an explosion to essentially create a fire that could turn anything into ash, just to cover their tracks. And Batman and Nightwing get out of there, but it's left up in the air as if Jason could have survived that. Then a few weeks later, Batman, while on patrol, finds a discarded Red Owl cowl, for lack of a better term. And a few months later, Gotham ends up seeing a string of vigilante activities done by someone in a red hood. So yeah, Jason survived, and Gotham just gained a new hero. But yeah, I want to really thank Thomas Hibbert for this. This was really fun. I really want to thank him for his continued patronage. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Comment below, let me know. And as always, there is a link to my Patreon in the description if you want your own Patreon request video. Just join my Patreon and I'll get to it. So anyway, this has been Captain Lunar, signing off.